Hey everybody, this is Tristan with Televised magazine. The Instagram bio of today's guest states disgruntled indie pop for dummies. She's released three new singles in the past month. Please welcome Omlet. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. I've listened to all the singles. Ladybug, the first of the three, was your first release since March of 2023. How did your sound kind of evolve in those 2 years?
Well, here's the thing. When I was releasing in like March 2023, I was really into the sound that I had created then. It was very difficult for me to think about evolution at all because I felt so comfortable with what I had created. I
Mhm.
just wanted to stay there and never
Yeah.
leave. I think that Ladybug is kind of an evolution of what I liked best on my previous work, something like more bass heavy with like a lyrical focus. So I think it was really just about picking and choosing what I liked the best and evolving from that, not paying attention to what does everybody else like best. What do I like making best?
Mhm.
And I think beyond that, it really, the big thing that I tried to focus on in that 2 year period where I was just creating was engineering because I hadn't done it before. And I was
Okay.
like, well, I don't have the money to pay anybody else. I need to learn this skill if I
Right.
want my music to level up. So I would say that kind of made a difference. And I do think that learning about engineering kind of informed like the compositions of a lot of the work that I ended up creating.
Mhm.
So I would say that's probably how it evolved the
Um,
most.
And fill me in, was this or were these singles entirely like self-produced, self-mixed, self-engineered?
Yes.
Okay, that makes it 10 times more impressive because they sound
Thank
phenomenal.
you. Thank you.
Um, and to anybody who's watching, there are two new singles out now. You followed up Ladybug less than a month later with a double single of Fish Heaven and My Harpsichord, which when we're filming this aren't out yet, but when people are watching was released on June 27th. With so many songs in such a short time frame, is this kind of leading to a larger project?
I thought you'd never ask. Yeah. Yeah, it is. Yeah, this is all I've been like talking about it because I'm not some kind of like mysterious big artist that needs to keep people on their toes. Like,
Mhm.
yes, there is an album.
Yeah.
Um, and there will be one more single after this in July. So giving some time for the double to like marinate because that's
Mhm.
2 songs. It's like a lot of content.
Right.
And then yeah, the album. I don't know. Should I like tell everybody what it's called?
If you want to.
I haven't done that
I'm not
yet.
gonna make you say anything you haven't
I think
said publicly
I think
yet.
I
So,
want to because I don't know how much of Omelet Nation really watches the interviews that I do. So I'm just
okay.
gonna, for the people who are tuning in, this is a treat for you. It's called Dumb as Rocks and Other Sediments, and it's gonna be out hopefully August 15th. That's the day,
August
I think.
15th. Okay.
Yes.
And how many songs are going to be on it? How long do you think it's going to be?
13 songs, I think,
Okay.
between 30 and 40 minutes, I think.
Okay,
So
that's a
a nice
full-blown
healthy
album.
amount.
That's
Yeah.
a good length.
Yeah.
And it's been kind of brewing and building for 2 years while you learned
Yeah.
engineering and you learned what you want to do with your sound and with your songs.
Right. I think the first song that I wrote for is actually the last song on the album. I'm not going to spoil what it's called yet because I have some
Okay.
fun things planned for it. But that one I wrote actually before my previous album, It's a Bird, It's a Plane, It's Omelet, came out. I wrote
Mhm.
that in February of 2023. So that's
Okay.
kind of when it started. And I thought it was going to set the tone for the album, but it kind of didn't. It kind of
Mhm.
feels like when you listen to it, or at least when I listened to it, kind of a black sheep. And it actually took one of the longest to finish. I didn't finish it until this year.
Oh wow. When I was first learning about the music industry and digging my way in, I didn't think of just how much time and effort went into the album creation process, because I would hear stories about like, oh, Kendrick got the beat for this song like 6 days before GNX came out or whatever. And then now I'm realizing like that's an anomaly. Most people are spending, 6 months plus
Yeah.
on just a couple songs here or there. So it's insane how that idea started like, pretty much 2.5 years ago now.
Yeah.
I mean, by the time it
That
comes out,
nuts.
it will be 2.5 years, and people are just getting to hear it.
I know that's so weird because I've never kept something with me for that long. I think my first project included stuff from 2019 to 2021, but
Hmm.
it was never, I never thought that I was going to be putting those things out. But even then, I think I held those to myself for a shorter amount of
Hmm.
time that I'm holding what I've created now and then getting to share it. I actually didn't think of it that way. I didn't realize how long it
Yeah.
had been.
So does this make it feel more personal, like more of an investment than it already did?
Actually, I think so because I've never been nervous to distribute anything before. And then when I
Hmm.
distributed Ladybug, I actually distributed it and then I took it off and did it again a month later because I was like, no, it's not ready. But the first time I did it, I was so nervous
Yeah.
and I had never felt that before. I guess because it was like Ladybug had been with me.
Hmm.
Really, I wrote it June 2023, so it's been 2 years now.
Oh wow.
So I guess yeah, I was nervous. I'd never been nervous about it before.
Um, and you had mentioned when you dropped Ladybug and then took it back and dropped it again. Your marketing is some of the most unique I've seen for a smaller artist. I actually knew of you
Thank
before you
you.
reached out because you've been all over my TikTok for you page. So what led you down this marketing path of like daily posts and just the uniqueness of it all?
Well, I think a lot of it was probably inspired by because in addition to being a musician, I'm also a visual artist. So I'm really into the whole world building a whole project.
Hmm.
And Ladybug was kind of that was the first thing where it clicked kind of what the aesthetics of this project were going to be
Okay.
with the whole, felt and it's fun and it's nostalgic and it's kind of picnicky and like there's dirt under your nails. Uh, so I wanted to lean into that fully with the music video. And then when I did the music video, it was like it all made sense. And then with the marketing and stuff, it became very easy because I had a vision for what this whole world was going to be. And then when I had to conceptualize, I want to do a silly post about this, or I want to just chop up a music video and put it out there, it
Hmm.
became actually easier than it's ever been to
Okay.
figure out what I wanted to post. I think because I had spent so much time marinating on what I wanted the world to look like.
Hmm.
Because I had done while I was doing a lot of research about engineering, I was doing a lot of research about marketing. And I was trying to take cues from things like, while I was in the trenches of building this album, phenomenons like Brat Summer were happening, where,
Yeah.
that's like one of the greatest examples of music marketing, at least like in the 21st century,
Hmm.
where it's something that people can interact with and they can help build it as well. Like Charlie conceptualized it, but every time somebody interacted with it, the narrative just built further. And I actually have been seeing that with my own stuff. Like people will leave little comments and it further enriches the world of the album. And that's kind of what I wanted to accomplish. Something that people could play into a bit.
Yeah, it's like this universe that you've created that people can add on to of like when I envision the singles in my head, I think of like earth tones and grass and being at like a river and like seeing all the mud and the bugs and everybody can interact with that in their own way and talk about the memories they've had that they associate with that kind of thing. And I think you made a good point by bringing up Brat, just how Charlie was able to like pretty much catapult herself into the mainstream for the first time in a decade off of like her last couple albums hadn't been that successful, so her team didn't want to give her the biggest budget for the album shoot, so she was like, well, let's just do this. Let's just do what ended up being Brat. And now it was like the defining internet culture of last summer.
Yeah.
It's
And
insane,
the thing
really.
about that is that a big part of why she did, just the text cover was to save money. I think
Yeah.
despite being an artist with a label backing, the whole approach was very independent and something that a
Mhm.
lot of indie artists can learn from, even if they've got no money to spend on this. Because I surely don't. I
Right.
put like no money towards this except for like I got some clown makeup in an upcoming video. That's probably the most I spent
So there
on
are more music
anything.
videos coming?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
there are. I'm currently in still working on the My Harpsichord and Fish Heaven ones because there's so many moving parts and there's so much green screen, and
Mhm.
it took longer than I remembered it taking, but we move. They're coming.
Yeah. The video for Ladybug kind of gave me this like mid 2000s aesthetic, kind of like a bit too old for me to remember directly, despite, being alive in the mid 2000s as a baby. But and then seeing like it reminded me of like That's So Raven, and like all those shows that I would used to
Right.
watch. Yeah,
Yeah.
because it just reminded me of that time period and like the slide out phones that we would have right before the iPhone came out. Like it reminds me of that time period that I'm just slightly too old to remember, but still a little nostalgic for.
Yeah.
And then My Harpsichord opens with the line, let's get into the new singles. It opens with the line, I'm an ant with a burden on my back. For how like quirky and spontaneous your music sounds, it seems like there's some deep lyrical analysis to be had as well. What kind of was going
Yeah.
through your mind during the songwriting process for My Harpsichord?
My harpsichord was a beast. I
Yeah?
think the writing was probably the easiest. I did it in sections. I wrote the verse and the chorus of my harpsichord very furiously, very quickly, and tucked it away and didn't touch it and came back to it and then
Mhm.
wrote the rest. But I think it was kind of just inspired by, I think I wrote it like the beginning of last year, maybe like late 2023. I actually can't
Okay.
remember. But I guess a lot during that time when you're in the trenches of working on your music, you just want to, you feel stuck a lot in your own head in terms of
Hmm.
like, well, it has to be like this, it has to be like this. Because I was trying to pull on from a lot of my inspirations, but also make it uniquely my own. Uh, my harpsichord like clip the strings, pull the floor. Like it's kind of like self-liberation and like ha to all the bullies and the haters. I guess the burden on your back, like
Yeah.
you gotta be the colorful speck in the black, which is
Hmm.
like literally the next line. There's this burden to be, you need to, I guess, let go of all the burdens on your back and just be, a dazzling star. But it can be difficult in spite of all of like the perils of life.
Hmm. Yeah, that's such a good point. And when you said that, I was like, you said self-liberation, and that once again tied it back to Brat in my head, and just like the freedom that was associated with Brat Summer of like, being free to be independently you, was kind of part of the vibes that I got from that album, even through like, in the songs where Charlie talks about like anxiety and her traumas and whatnot. But in the end, coming out free and hopeful for what was to come. Um,
365 Party Girl.
yeah, 365 Party Girl. You had kind of hinted at calling back to some people who had inspired you musically. Who are some people who have inspired you over the years?
There are so many, and I knew because I watched some of your interviews because you're like awesome.
Thank you.
And I knew you were going to ask this question, and I want to remember everybody, and I'm so scared that I'm not going to. First, I would be remiss not to mention Foster the People. Like
Okay.
they represent further like the whole 2000s, 2010s
Hmm.
indie stuff. There's like Phoenix and Two Door Cinema Club, and oh my goodness, MGMT. Like everyone's Escape Passion Pit,
I've
but
been
Foster
getting
the
more
People's
into MGMT lately, and they're
so
so
good.
good. I'm
They're
going,
so
I'm kind of going through their discography in order, so I've only heard the first two albums up to this point, but they've been so fun to learn.
they're so fun.
Yeah.
Foster the People's kind of like my number one. And I think
Okay.
you could draw maybe some direct comparisons to I think specifically stuff off of Torches on this upcoming album. That was the big
Hmm.
one that inspired me the most. But I think it's even more of just like Foster the People isms with like the ad libs and stuff.
Right.
I think subconsciously weaved its way into just the way I create music. Um, the Postal Service, I had a big Postal Service phase,
Okay.
like in the making of this album, which I think you can hear on a couple of tracks. Speaking of Two Door Cinema Club, there was a time where I only wanted to listen to Two Door Cinema Club when I was making this album. And there's a song on the album where if I'm not going to reveal which one it is right now, but if I pointed it out after it's released, everyone's going to say Omelet. That sounds nothing like a Two Door Cinema Club song, but I promise you, the percussion, there's like a percussive bridge.
Hmm.
It's, I wanted it to feel like tourist history. Cocteau Twins.
People are gonna come back to this in like 2, 3 months just for that Two Door Cinema Club comment.
Yes. Cocteau Twins was a big one. Magdalena Bay. I almost forgot them. Oh
I
my
love
goodness.
Magdalena Bay.
And
Um,
they're so good.
saw them live last month, got to meet them after the show. It was fantastic. Yeah.
Really? Oh my goodness. I signed up for the pre-sale for their St. Petersburg show and then I
Mhm.
forgot and then it sold out. So I'm trying to get tickets. I
So
really, really want to see them.
my I went with two of my friends and we were like one of them hit us up during like the day the show was announced and was like, "Hey, tickets are like $40. You want to go?" And he bought all the tickets for us and we just paid him back. And then they had to upgrade venues because they were originally at the Truman in Kansas City, which is like 1,500 people-ish. They ended up upgrading to the Midland, which is like 4,500, and it was still sold out. Like they switched venues to a
Wow.
much bigger one and still sold out. And I was kind of amazed, because Kansas City's not
Wow.
like the biggest market in the world, but they put on a great show. We were pretty much like second row in the pit too. We were like right up there. And then meeting them after the show, they're the sweetest people. It was like 12:30 in the morning. They didn't have to do anything. They stuck around, they signed stuff, they took pictures. It was fantastic.
They're so cool. I
I'll
need
I'll
to
have
see them.
I'll have to send you the picture that I got with them. And then
Awesome.
now they're coming to Oklahoma City in October, and I'm like, oh, they're coming 2 hours away from me.
Hmm.
Do I go again?
Hmm. Yeah. Um, oh, Gorillas is another big one.
Okay.
Specifically like their early stuff. Ladybug was very inspired by their first album, like
Hmm.
Rehash, and that was like a big reference track when I was learning to engineer. Oh my goodness, there are like more. Radiohead. Oh my goodness, Radiohead. I
Radiohead.
almost
Okay.
forgot. I almost forgot Radiohead. I love In Rainbows, and I want to make my version of a 15 step one day. I'm just looking at my CDs over here because I'm seeing names and then they're just popping out at me like,
And
yes,
then they're
of
just
course.
coming into your head.
Yeah,
I wish I had a larger Radiohead physical collection. I have the Bends on vinyl, and that's it.
I have the Bends and I have In Rainbows, and that's it. And I need more, but
Okay.
CDs are
So
getting expensive now too.
CDs are getting expensive.
Yeah,
There's still deals to be had, but not as much as there used to be.
yeah. And then I guess I'll wrap up, tie a nice little bow on these references. Fiona Apple was a big one there. Oh, and the Ting Tangs. And the Ting Tangs. I can't forget them.
Okay.
Just that whole 2000s, 2010s vibe.
Hmm.
That was big.
There's a lot of influences at play on this record from the sounds of it.
Yeah.
And then so if you've watched my other interviews, you know how I'm gonna wrap this up. Where can fans find you on social media?
Um, like all over the place. So I'm on TikTok. Frozone's Crocs is the official username because I made it in middle school and I'm not changing it. But if you type in Omelet Music, you'll find me.
Hmm.
Instagram, Omelet Music, and Omelet's visuals as well. If you like, please commission me. I love making art for other artists. So all you artists out there, I do all kinds of stuff. Just hit me
Anybody
up.
watching, reach out.
Yes. Uh, and then I have a website. On my Instagram, you'll find a link tree with all kinds of goodies.
Oh yeah,
Spotify, Apple Music.
that just reminded me, I wanted to mention the website because I looked at it the other day and it's so like Netscape Navigator-y, like 90s internet type stuff, like stuff that I go onto the Wayback Machine and I'm like, this used to be what the whole internet looked like, and now it just kind of looks like a corporate hellscape.
Yeah.
But yeah, the website's cool. Everybody go look at it.
Thank you.
Even if you're just browsing for a second, it's very reminiscent of like I remember when I was a kid, like my aunt was on MySpace and I was like 5 years old and I was like, what does this do? What does this do? And it's very like MySpace-esque in some ways. And then the final question, what are your three favorite songs at the moment?
Oh my goodness. I thought about this one too, and this is really tough, but I will narrow it
Okay.
down.
If you don't want to narrow it down to songs, you can
Okay.
do albums or artists or just what's been
Okay.
on your repeat. We'll make it a little easier for you, I promise.
Okay. Right before this interview, actually, I was listening to the recent Peel album, which
Okay.
is Foster the People. just like a couple of the members.
Hmm.
It's like their side project. It's like 11,000 listeners on Spotify, and it's so good. It's called Acid Star, and it's very, very awesome. Highly
Hmm.
recommend. Um, After their new songs, like 300 Dreams and Deep Diving, are so good. Like
I have
very,
not heard of them.
they're
I'll
so good.
have
You
to.
gotta
I'll
look
have
them
to
up
fix that.
right now after this interview. They're so cool. And they're really popping off right now.
Mhm.
Like very Brudiger Arrow, like nostalgic early 2010s
Fruitiger
stuff.
Arrow's making a comeback. I have the new iOS
Yeah,
update on my phone and it's very like glassy and stuff. I love it.
yeah. I'm excited for that. I haven't updated yet, but I'm very
I
excited
wouldn't
for
yet. It's still kind of glitchy. I would wait. I'm gonna be so honest.
okay, perfect.
And then your third one.
Um, oh yeah, there's a really cool artist called Romera who's also popping off right now. A lot of people say he sounds like Tyler the Creator, but he's doing like his own cool genre fusion stuff.
Okay.
He just put out a song called The Last Mabel Corn, which is really cool. It's like hip hop and then it goes into like this hardcore rock track. And then
Hmm.
also Sunrise Mountain featuring Omlet. It's on YouTube right now. He hasn't put it on streaming yet. And there's an album coming, which I'm really excited to hear, but I was very fortunate to be able to work with him and he's really cool and our song is really cool.
You got your own album coming out. You got a feature coming out. Everybody has no excuse but to listen to Omelette, given that there's just so much music to listen to. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having
Of
me.
course, it
Very
was so
fun. I had a
much fun.
blast.
It was the first time I've ever been reached out to do an interview instead of me doing the reaching out, so that felt cool. But yeah, thank you so much. Thanks everybody for watching, and we will see you later. Bye.
Bye.